What's up, guys? Welcome back to Mike It Yourself, and on today's video we're gonna essentially flush the brake fluid out of the front brakes on the 17 Road Glide and throw some new fluid in there. Let's take a second and I'll tell you why. Damn it! Alright guys, so the reason we're doing this essentially flush of my front brakes is because what I'm finding is these things are pretty tight, man. Like, as soon as you grab on them, they're there. And what I've got a gut feeling for is the fact that, I don't know if that's the way to say it, my belief is I've probably got moisture in my brake fluid. Okay guys, rule number one, when you're opening up your brake fluid and going to be messing with the fluid, cover up and protect your paint, especially, most importantly, if you're dealing with .3, .4, and I think it's .5.1, because those fluids, or that style, I don't know, whatever it is you want to call it, of brake fluid, it gets on your paint and it's going to bubble up your paint and it's going to come off. So we've got the cover off. One of the things I want to point out is I turned my handlebars, so I've got my bike on a scissor jack, so it's standing straight up, right? Which means this thing is not really level. So I think, and guys, correct me if I'm wrong, man, but I think the way you probably want to best do this is on the Jiffy stand, and that'll get you laned over and just prevent, or help prevent any spillage. So, this is, I want to call it a mistake that I made, but it could be done better. So anyhow, looking at the fluid, it doesn't look too bad. I don't see the separation, but it's a little dark. So I want to do a comparison so we can see kind of the difference in color, right? So I got a little dropper here. Let's just take a look. So let's, take a look at that. That's the old fluid. Okay, so this is what fresh fluid looks like. Huge difference, right? This is like water almost clear. There's a slight tint to it. I mean, you could barely tell though. But that's what it should look like. So obviously you can see the difference in the color, letting you know, yeah, that fluid's dirty. So we're gonna suck that out of there with you can use like a small dropper like that, or you can use a huge turkey baster, whatever it is, and then throw it into like an empty. I keep my empties, that way I can, rotate that stuff out. All right guys, so now we're down here at the caliper, and you're gonna wanna take off your little bleed screw cover. If yours is like mine and it doesn't have the little retainer anymore, don't lose it. You wanna hang on to it. These are good to keep and keep on top of that. I'm not going to say it's a necessity, but it's much better to have than not have at all. And then you're going to want to open up that bleed screw to 3/8 on this bike. And be prepared, you may have some leakage. So if you do, just throw a rag down there or whatever. But I like to use, like I said, the syringe to essentially capture this fluid. It makes it easy. You just go ahead and start drawing it out. Open up a little bit more, make it a little easier for that stuff to come out. And I didn't cover my fender, so I'm kind of freaking out a little bit right now. As long as this stuff doesn't get flung around at all, we'll be safe. But that is my fail. And exactly what I'm saying is, like, you gotta just take time, make sure you kind of get your stuff set up before you get working on the job, to just protect your stuff, man, because nobody wants to deal with jacked up paint. Okay. So keep everything nice and protected. Drain it out into our canister. And you probably only have to do it like twice, because the coppers don't hold a ton of fluid in them. But so yeah, so just you repeat that process. Once you're done, tighten up the bleed screw, and then what we're gonna end up doing is doing the other side, and then we'll get ready to start filling it all back up, and I'll walk you through that process. But this is a simple process. Once you've done, basically you're drawing it out, you'll hear it start sucking from the top, and you don't see any more fluid coming through, then you know that caliper's done, and you can move on to the next caliper. Okay, so now I've got the calipers both drained. We've got the master cylinder that drained as well. So now we can go ahead and start putting the new fluid into the system. And it's a pretty simple process. What I like about the syringe style, and there are different tools, guys. So they make the one that hooks up to your compressor. I've actually got that one somewhere here in the garage, where it uses vacuum, with your air compressor, and it, provides suction and draws it through. You can do the old school method of filling that up, have somebody up there squeeze your handbrake, hold it, bleed it, and continue to do the same thing over and over. It takes a really long time to get that done. At least because I'm getting older, I'm getting less patient. Or you can do this method where you fill it up here, you take your syringe and you just draw it out real quick, and well, not quick. So you draw it. You got to keep making sure you don't let that get too low, because if you do, then you're going to introduce air into your line. So as you draw it down, you want to make sure it stays full. And then once you got no air bubbles coming out from the bottom there, then you know that line is done, and you move over to your other side, again doing the same thing. The other side's a little bit more of a pain, because that's of course on the other side of your brake lever, so you got to stand up. So it's a little bit of a process, but let me go ahead and fill that up, and I'll show you as we draw it down here. Okay, and as I mentioned, when it comes to brake fluid, don't play around. So I've got now a towel over my fender to protect that. This front side of my lowers I'm not too concerned about, because it's not really too much painted surface there, and it gets hit by rocks and stuff anyway, so not as big of a deal, but definitely don't want to see my fender get jacked up. So now I just need to loosen up that bleed screw and start drawing the fluid into the syringe. So pretty simple process. Just want to loosen that up. And in this particular case, when you're done drawing it through, you're going to want to tighten it up. So I'll go ahead and just start drawing the fluid. Right, so I wanted to show you guys, like, as you draw, I'm drawing the air out of the system right now. So it's just bubbles, 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 bubbles. So I know that, see that? So now it's coming through without any bubbles. Then I've essentially removed all that from the line and the caliper, and we should be good to go on this side. We'll want to tighten that up. So we've got it done, and I'll tell you right now, guys, so I wanted to make sure that I got every bit of air bubble out of there. So after I showed you those air bubbles, I kept going, and I pulled too much fluid through it without filling the reservoir, so I had to do it again. So that's why it's so important to kind of keep your eye on it. If you could do this with the second person to help monitor that with you or for you, that's the best way. And I also want to call out, and I'm guilty of not checking this. I know, like on Japanese bikes, some of the older bikes, you had to do like the left side before you do the right side. So that might be a mistake that I've made. I'll know when I test my brakes out and they ain't working right. But what I did find is, after I did this one, I went and did the other side, and there was little to no air bubbles in there. So either I got lucky, dumb luck, and did it the right pattern, or I'm getting a false positive or something, right? Like the air bubbles are somewhere else in the system, but I think I'm good. I'll find out. So once you get that done, then you're gonna wanna make sure you top off your fluid. You know, protect. So like I had a little bit of spillage, just barely, and while I was wiping, my rag got into the fluid and I went to pull it out and it started dripping down. So immediately, buy rag, that one's done, goes in the, you know, dirty rags barrel, get a new rag. These, you get a pack of 50 of these for like, you know, dirt cheap from Harbor Freight. Just go through them, man. Like, it's not worth trying to reuse a rag once it gets soaked, because then it's gonna get all over. So anyhow, we're gonna go put the cap on. Before you do, just make sure you inspect your cap. You want to make sure there's no like rips, tears, holes, or anything like that. If it's been pinched or whatever, then you're gonna want to replace it, because if those conditions exist, then that is a place where that moisture is going to get into your system. So yeah, just make sure you inspect for that. So we'll go ahead, and mine looks good. I'm gonna put mine back on and we'll test out how the brakes feel. All right guys, so wrap this up, and I just wanted to make sure I'm giving you guys, you know, good information. Again, I'm not a certified mechanic. I don't work for Harley Davidson. So I'm just a regular guy kind of doing this in his garage, and I'm trying to learn along with you all. I did check to see for touring models, it does recommend that you do the left caliper first and then do the right caliper. Reading through forums, you know, exactly as I expected to find. You find a mix of people. So the book says do it that way, left, right, okay? But other people are saying they've tried all kinds of different things. Some people very unsuccessful. So I think at the end of the day, as long as you can confirm you have no air in your lines, you're good, okay? And then the brake, when you test it, should not feel spongy. If you have spongy feel to it, then you probably got air in your lines still, and you need to continue to go through that process. It can be a bear, just be patient. There is no super quick way to get any of it done. So just, you know, take your time, make sure you do it right. And again, it's more important to get this done, especially if you want to get that humidity out of there, because if your brakes get really, really hot and you have too much water or moisture in your brake lines, you know, I've heard bad occurrences. This is probably a one-off situation where brakes could even lock up, and cause you a crash, right? So that's not something you want to experience, or even just run into like in a parking lot, right? Where you start skidding on your front tire or whatever, as you gently grab your brake. So left, then right, and make sure you get all the bubbles out. Check, make sure it's not squishy. If it's squishy, then you know you want to make sure you double check for those air bubbles. Another thing you do too is, like, once you kind of get down there, is with your cap off, slowly, you know, cycle through a couple of times. You can tap on the lines and see if any of that air bubbles come up, and it's just another double check, right? So not a big deal. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that thumbs up. If you enjoy my content, become a subscriber. Again, this is just a community of people watching me essentially learn and make mistakes, and I want to be honest with you guys, and, you know, let you know what I know, what I don't know, and not mislead you to believe that I'm like a perfect person. So if I find something that I've done wrong, like not doing the left over the right first, I'm gonna call it out. I'll let you know. So hope you learned something. It's on my next video. I hope to see you in the wing.